Live struggle legacy. It's a whole movement.
We in there?
Hey everybody, it's your boy MP, Live Struggle Legacy, and welcome to episode 8 of the Live Struggle Legacy podcast. So if you haven't already done so, you might want to go listen to the first 7 episodes because you're missing a lot. This would not be the time to tune in. So if this is your first time tuning into the Live Struggle Legacy podcast, make sure you catch up. We're building a story here. All right. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment, that subscribe button. If you want to get active and start a conversation, ask questions, have me elaborate on something I talked about in a previous episode, make sure you do so in the comments. Let's get active. The last episode, I talked about Williamsburg FCI. That's a medium high. It was my first actual prison. So remember, prison and jail, 2 completely different worlds. I brought you about a year in to my bid in the last one. And where I left off, I was just getting ready to tell you about the whole prison economy. So in prison, there's this whole economy, right? It is literally a microcosm of society, right? As I told you in the last episode, you have like a whole city, like a whole college campus pretty much within this compound structure, right? And you have to have a job. Everybody has to have a job. And there's 1,800 convicts, right? So there are plenty of jobs. And the jobs pay on average maybe 12 cents an hour, maybe 30 cents an hour if you're balling, right? And then there's a program called Unicor, which is literally, it's prison labor. It's essentially, they do textiles, they do license plates. But here's a funny story. My experience with Unicor I did was actually directory assistance, 411. Yeah, when you call 411 city and state, please, it was a fucking convict sitting in a prison somewhere, right? I'll elaborate that on that in a moment. But I'll tell you, so everybody has to have a job. If you don't have a job, you go to jail, right? And something else I touched on was there is jail within jail. It's called the SHU, the Special Housing Unit. A lot of y'all might know it as the hole or solitary confinement. So if you don't go to work, they consider that a disobeying a direct order. It's a 300 series shot, which is low level, but you can lose good time and they're going to lock your ass up until you decide you want to get out and work. Now, most people work something that's called the compound. And the compound can be a number of different things. It could be taking out the trash. It could be walking around the yard with a little, we call it the pooper scooper. It's the little dustpan with the stick on the end and then the small little brush. So you just walk around the compound picking up candy wrappers or whatever else may be the case. So that was my first job. Didn't pay shit, but it was a lay down job. You go get your little pooper scooper. You get certain hours, and when the compound's closed, it was actually kind of cool because, you know, everything's controlled movement. And so you only get to move when they call the move. But when you work the compound, everybody's locked in. And then you go out and you go sign out your little pooper scooper and your broom and you walk around the compound and you pick up trash, right? So that was my first job. And if you have like money, that's really what you want because you really don't have to work. But they have electric, they have HVAC. They have laundry. You can get a job in recreation. You can get a job in education. You can get a job in the kitchen. And if you don't take initiative and find the job you want, automatically they put you in the kitchen. Nobody wants to be in the kitchen. As I told you, that's where people jack off and things. That's where there's crazy, dumbass politics, and you're stuck in there all day. Like, I've skated past the kitchen because I got the compound job. And then from the compound job, I was blessed to get into Unicor. Unicor is real hard to get in. I don't remember how I got in it. I want to say I knew somebody, and then you put in a cop out, which is a request in there, but you basically word it like a job application, and then you literally, I had like convict references, and I bring it there. So Unicor was this big ass building, right, like a warehouse style building in the compound. And that particular, it's different in every spot, right? In some spots, they do textiles, they make sheets, they make clothing for the military, some make bulletproof vests, some do like license plates, but it's essentially slave labor. You make $1 an hour, and that's like balling for real. Like if you make $1 an hour, you're balling in prison. But at the time, it was Directory Assistance 411. So I'd literally sitting there in this medium high, and people would call, and I'd be like, city and state, please. And then I got to go in there, and I loved it because I'm fresh in on, you know, a fucking 12-year bid essentially, and it's like I'm traveling. People are calling, and then and really when they would be like, I had a lot of people calling for Tampa, and I'm like, damn, you know. So now I'm in the free world, looking in my mind, looking up addresses. I think somebody wanted at one point PF Chang's and West Shore, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh shit, you know what I mean? And so, but you're giving them the information like way back in the day before, you know, we had all this other shit that we have now. This is before smartphones, like. Maybe smartphones were just coming out, but I didn't touch a smartphone until I came home from prison. So Directory Assistance was real big, and I guess that slowly started to get phased out. But part of the reason why they shut ours down, as you can imagine, motherfuckers would go in there and look up their exes and then call them from the payphone and be talking shit and, you know, doing dumb shit. You're just crashing out, fucking it up for everybody, like so often is the case. But so that was my first job, and then they shut Unicor down. I was only in there for like maybe 6 months at the most. And then I got a job in laundry. And my homeboy, my co-defendant, who I told you was my cellie for a while, he was working in laundry. And that was a pretty good job to have. It's a job where you could hustle because everybody wants extra drawers, you know what I mean? Boxers, socks, you know, everybody wants a special uniform that you wear to your visits, because visits are a big deal. Clearly your people are coming for wherever, and so you want to look fresh. You got to wear khakis, but you want like a brand new pair of khakis, not the ones they give you. They usually give you 2 sets, and they're usually all ragged and, you know, don't fit you right. So if you want something special, then you just go to laundry, and then you give a guy, you know, X amount of stamps. So this is where we're going to talk about this whole economy thing. So and Now my homie, who was my co-defendant, right? And I told you we were roommates. I told you they beat up the dude in the room, and then I ended up moving in with bro. Well, when they put me in Unicor, I had to leave that unit. They put you in a special unit for Unicor. It's only the Unicor unit. So I had to pack up all my shit. They put me in the Unicor unit, and I'm trying to think who my first cellie was. Oh man, he was a mess. He was from Durham, North Carolina. And he had a big ass scar on his face. Somebody shot him in the face with a 12 gauge. He had bullet holes like all in him. Everybody I met from Durham had some kind of bullet hole in them, like some kind of scar. Everybody I met from Durham. I'm not exaggerating. Every single person. Same with Gary, Indiana. I don't know what's going on in Durham, North Carolina, and Gary, Indiana, but every single person I met from there, and I met quite a few, they all had bullet wounds somewhere. So if you can help it, be careful in Durham or Gary, Indiana. So we were in the Unicor unit. And so that I had to move into the Unicor unit, and then I stayed in that unit when Unicor closed. I ended up getting a job in laundry, and my job was I would all the orderlies would bring their dirty mop. It's kind of a nasty ass job because I told you the things they clean with those mops. I don't even want to revisit it. Listen, no, it's bodily fluids and it's disgusting. But I would have my gloves on, of course, and they would bring these big tubs full of dirty mops and dirty rags and stuff. And all I would do is take the whole bag, because the bags are sealed. So when you do your laundry in there, it's disgusting. All your clothes get sealed in a bag. You write your name on it, and then that's how they wash your clothes, right? So I'm working in laundry, and my particular job was to wash all the orderly mop buckets. So I would take them and toss them in the thing and whatever. It was a sweet gig because we got to hustle. I had access to socks. I had access to drawers. So if you wanted new socks, new drawers, like that was my hustle in the laundry. You know, you shoot me a couple stamps, which was the currency, and you know, I'd get you some new socks, new drawers, white tees, that was the lick with the laundry department. It was a solid job, solid hustle. And so on that note, I want to tell you about this whole prison economy, right? So everybody has a hustle. Everybody. Your hustle might be drawing. It might be painting. It might be in that recreation room. They got a leather room where you can make leather. They got beads, so you can make beads, send them home to your people. They got an art room where you can paint. They had crochet, so you could crochet, and they have people teaching all these classes. They have people teaching leather making. They have people teaching crochet. They have people teaching painting, drawing. So you can actually get in there if your mind's right and learn to do some shit. I mean, they're all waitlisted, so it's kind of crazy how you have to wait and wait and wait, but you can get in there and learn something. And then when you learn that can be your hustle. So, guys are crocheting stuff, sending it home to their kids, but they're also taking commissions, crocheting stuff, selling it to people, and having them, either put money on their books from the street or, stamps, that's the currency. So, and generally, if you don't have family and whatnot, and you have a hustle, you're only going to take stamps, which is kind of dangerous because you can only have so many stamps, and the cops are assholes. They don't give a fuck about you. If they catch you with more than like X amount of books of stamps, I want to say you're only allowed to have like 1 or 2 books. If they catch you with more, they confiscate them. But so which was unfortunate for people who don't have family in the streets to send money out to or to put it on their books. But what people would do is, if you're selling, like, say, a piece of leather, well, that's going to be X amount of books and stamps. So then you just tell your people, wire me X amount of dollars, put it on my books. And the way the money works in there is there's a lockbox. So if you remember when I was talking about county jail and the way diesel therapy worked, the way that worked was they send the money to the jail. But then once you leave, that money stays in the jail. Your money doesn't follow you, right? So it was a mess when you're trying to get money and you're not eating, and they're sending you from place to place to place because your people are sending money, and before it can hit your books, they're sending it back. They're sending you somewhere else, right? Well, once you actually are designated in the BOP, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, there's a lockbox. So that way, no matter where they ship you, your money stays in the lockbox. And when you want to send somebody money, you send the money order to the lockbox, right? So it's a little more secure, your money, right? And it's crazy how much money motherfuckers would have in their account, and they would, how people stunt. In here, they would stunt with their commissary slip. It shows you their balance. You got people in there with, over 100 grand, even a couple $100 grand on their books. It's like, damn, you don't trust nobody in the streets if you just told your people, put all that on your books, because clearly that money would have been better invested, earning some kind of interest or something, right? So you got storemen within the unit, and the storeman, it's literally like you walk in there and dude opens up his locker and it's got shelves and he's got like the Nutty Buddies here, you got the Honey Buns. I mean, it's all fucking poison, fucking cancerous, toxic bullshit. But if you want a snack, you don't have to wait for commissary. You get to shop commissary once a week. And let's say you got a disciplinary. Well, the first thing they like to do is take your phone in your commissary. Even if it's like a stupid shot for something stupid, they'll take your phone, they'll take your commissary. So let's say that's the case. Well, now all you can do is hustle stamps. You can't go to the store or anything. So you go take your stamps, you go to the store, man. You got to, of course, you have to pay the inflated price. But that was the currency. You go get you a snack, get you a soda, or whatever the case may be. And then one thing people did was they sold nachos, they sold burritos, everything under the sun. They made pizzas. I mean, you name it, people are making it. People come back to the kitchen with big bags. And I'll tell you what's pretty amazing. Convicts are innovative as a motherfucker. Like, so they used to take dental floss, which you're not allowed to have on a lot of spots because you can actually cut through bars, right? I think it has to have wax on it to cut through bars, and we can only have unwaxed. But they would somehow use dental floss to cut the trash cans in half, right? So we had those plastic trash cans, right? And in your cell, that's kind of like the chair. So, you don't want anybody sitting on your bunk. And then there's like one little chair that swings out that's bolted down to the table. But like, let's say you got a couple homies, you're talking, whatever, you flip over the trash can, that's the chair for your guest or whatever, right? But what they would do is they would cut that in half with dental floss, right? And then they would get a big bag full of vegetable oil from the kitchen, right? Hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is fucking poison, but this is what we use to fry. This is what they would use to fry. And then you get what's called a stinger. There's only one way to get a stinger. Somehow you have to steal an iron. There's only one iron in each unit. Well, somehow you have to steal it. Whether you steal it from your unit, another unit, you steal the iron. And this is a damn near impossible feat, because every time you walk out of any unit, any facility, you have to walk through a metal detector, right? And if you got anything on you that's metal, beep, 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 and then the guard, whoa, right? So you got to somehow try to circumvent it, and that's not that hard. You have somebody distract the guard, and boom, boom, you cut out past the metal detector, right? So what they do is they break open the iron, and they call it a stinger. And you take the electrical components of the iron, and you drop it into the oil in the trash can, and then you plug it in the wall. So now it gets hot. And now you melt the oil down and you're frying shit. And man, these motherfuckers fried everything under the sun. They would fry Snicker bars, honey buns. But my favorite were these fried burritos. They would fry wraps. They would make these burritos and then deep fry them like a flauta. You're like, so, that's just another hustle. You sell it for a couple stamps. And of course, there's always the illegal hustle. You got about 3 to 6 tattoo artists in every unit, and the tattoos are incredible. I mean, not everybody, but you had some unbelievable tattoo artists in there. Some people get full color. Initially, like county jail style, state prison style, you make tattoo ink out of soot. They would burn chess pieces and break it down into soot and mix it in water, and that makes ink. And you make your own ink. But once you get to prison, you can get everything in the sun. You can get cell phone, you can get tattoo ink, you can get fucking heroin, meth. Probably now, Fent wasn't that big when I was in, but anything you want comes in. And of course, it has to come in through the COs, or somebody will throw something over the yard, which it may or may not make it. They have a perimeter truck that rides around the yard. And man, sometimes you motherfucker might get a whole duffel bag, might have who the fuck knows in it, right? And you just gotta catch the timing right. Usually somebody on the compound that's working the compound has to catch it, put it somewhere safe, distribute it out and trickle it through all the units, right? So these are the ways that people hustle. But the tattoo artists would use clippers. So when I first went Fed, you could buy clippers. You can't buy those anymore. You couldn't, like a couple years into my bid, but you could buy electric clippers like Panasonic or whatever, battery operated, like 2AA clippers. And what you do is you break open the motor in the clipper and you make a tattoo gun out of it. And then the way that you make the needle is you find somebody in rec and you get a guitar string. And then they take the middle thread of, like, I want to say it's the E, the bigger chord, and then you take the center piece of that, and it's it's almost like a needle, but then you have to sharpen it. And the way they sharpen it, if you're lucky, somebody will get you a piece of sandpaper from the facilities shop where they do all the facility shit, like maintenance, so to speak, or you just sharpen it on the concrete. Everything in there is concrete and steel everywhere you go, so you just sharpen the guitar string on the concrete, and then you somehow put that in the tattoo gun. They make a little what did they use? They make a hot sauce bottle. Cut the hot sauce bottle in half, and then somehow put the needle in there. And a piece of they used to break a pen in half and then put it right through the end of the pen, and have a real deal tattoo gun. So that was a major hustle for people in there getting tattoos. A couple other hustles. You had people that did laundry for people. When I first fell, you had a washer and dryer. So you could wash and dry your own clothes, which was amazing. You have to buy the washing powder from the commissary, and it was borax. That's what they had. They had the big powdered borax, and they had a couple different ones you could get. They had the Tide, that was the high dollar shit, and then you get like the Borax, right? But I want to say within my first year, I came in the Fed. They started taking everything away. They took away the washer and dryer, but the washer and dryer used to cause a lot of shit, cause a lot of fights. And the funny thing is, I told you how innovative people are in there. Well, another hustle is wine. You make wine, right? And motherfucker will stab you about their wine. That's their hustle, right? So you buy sugar from the commissary, or you buy a bunch of Jolly Ranchers, or you have other people give you Jolly Ranchers, and then you got to get some kind of kicker like a potato or like a piece of bread, something that has yeast in it, and then they make wine, right? But the way they would cook it, somehow these dudes put it in the dryer. Now the dryer would still function, but it was like up into the shell of the dryer. So now every time somebody runs the dryer, they're cooking the wine. Crazy. I mean, the most innovative shit you've ever seen in here. I cannot make this shit up. I'm telling you, you don't believe me? Google this shit. And if you are listening and you're familiar with some of this shit, man, drop some stories in the comments, man. Let's get active in the conversation. I know it's people out here done a lot more time than me, been at a lot more spots than me. Share some stories. And if you got good stories, we'll bring you on the podcast. You can tell some stories. So they took away the washing machines, and then but that actually made it even better for laundry where I worked at, because now people want us to do their laundry. I could have done that, but I'm not doing your laundry, man. I'm not washing your drawers. I'm not folding your drawers. You can't pay me enough to do that. I'm sorry. I mean, you call it pride, ego. I'm just not washing people's drawers and folding them. I don't care. I will get you new drawers. I will get you new socks, but I'm not washing yours. But people would charge like a book of stamps a week or some shit. And that might not sound like a lot, but that could take you a long way in there. I'm trying to think of some other hustles in there. And of course there was the real shady hustles where motherfuckers would get paid to snitch. And you know, it was always a motherfucker with a gambling problem. Always in the lieutenant's office, dropping dimes, and then when they come back, all of a sudden they got money to gamble. Oh, and that was probably the biggest hustle in prison were tickets. Every unit had at least one ticket man. And that's where shit got hectic, because ticket man might have 100 books of stamps in his locker, or, you know, hidden in the cell somewhere. Well, man, this Jack boy's in prison, man. You got to remember, you're in with a bunch of convicts. Some people in here for guns. Some people are here for drugs. Some people are here for robbing. Some people are here for violence. You know, I mean, it's all federal, but you're in there with a bunch of convicts, man. This is not a college campus. It's prison. And so if them boys get wind that you got something, they're coming to get it. I remember these boys. I'll tell you a couple stories. I want to get too crazy with the stories, but these boys from West Palm, and they actually did have a slot in the band room. And that was a last episode. I was telling you that it was the DC dudes had the band room. Well, a little bit later on, a dude from North Carolina had it, and he let some of the people from Florida in on it. And these dudes were all from Palm Beach, and a couple were from Fort Myers, and they were the homies. They were some real ones too. But man, these are the coolest motherfuckers you ever met in your life. You would never think they were into what they were into, but they would go into other units during that 10-minute move. And they would go to the man that had the stamps, the dude that did the numbers. Remember, we're talking about numbers and gambling. Sports betting is what we're talking about. Those were the dudes who had the most money on the compounds. And these dudes from Palm Beach, man, not just Palm Beach. I'll tell you another story about another dude from Compton. We called him Compton. Cool as a motherfucker, but man, that motherfucker don't play. So the dudes from Palm Beach will go up in somebody else's unit during that 10-minute move, and then they'll put a t-shirt over their head, and they'll go into the cell and pull out a knife and make a motherfucker get butt naked, because they know you're not going to run after them if you're butt naked. Make them get butt naked, give them the stamps, run them stamps. That's, you know, it's a whole microcosm. Just like in the streets, people get run down on, get down or lay down, and believe me, if you didn't, they have no problem putting that knife in you. They have no problem. Matter of fact, they're waiting to. A lot of these dudes waiting for action. And there was another dude. So this was a group of dudes from Palm Beach, and there was another dude in there from Oakland, and he did it all by himself. He'd go in there all by himself, make you get butt naked, run them stamps, and then smile at you on the rec yard, like, what you gonna do about it? So if you got a hustle in there, you got to be careful because everybody sees everything. Everything you do, they're watching everything. I don't care how slick you think you are. Somebody's watching, they're talking. And, if you're not careful and you don't have respect, and even if you do, there's always going to be somebody to try you, just like in the real world. So that's a little bit about the prison economy. And I want to lighten it up a little bit and tell you about a little bit more about the spirituality. So I was telling you about JC and how I got introduced to yoga, and that became a major part of my life. And the whole time I'm in here, I'm trying to figure out what the fuck am I going to do when I get home to make money. Because, I had a college degree in business administration. Come on, man. Those teachers, they don't have no business experience. The business textbooks, by the time you get them in your hand, all that knowledge is obsolete. Business is done day by day. You know what I mean? And you're learning from people that have no experience. So, I can't lean on my education. And plus, I'm a convict. So I got to figure out what can I do. But I did work out every day. And I loved it. And people would come to me to fitness tips. And then by this time, I'm doing yoga. And then my wheels started turning. I'm thinking, man, I could be a trainer. That's what I was thinking, right? So more on that in a moment. I want to tell you a little bit about how I learned different kind of components of yoga. So JC was the first guy. That was the guy from Alabama that first put me on the yoga. Real good, solid dude. And like a yoga beast. And he used to run like ridiculous. He used to run like 10 miles a day. That's not my speed. I mean, I ran a lot. But look at me, man. If I run 10 miles a day, I'll disappear. I'll blow over the fence. You know what I mean? So I had to do a lot of strength training to keep my weight up. But I got introduced to this man named Black from Georgetown, South Carolina, not far from Myrtle Beach. And Black was training to be a UFC fighter. And he was probably about my height, maybe a little shorter. He's about 5'8", 5'9", but built like a Ninja Turtle. Bald head. Dark skin. This motherfucker had a 6-pack on his back. I shit you not. And Black taught a class called Power Yoga. And, I didn't go to my first real yoga class until I was like 2 years into the free world in like 2016, right? 17. But I used to go to Black's classes every Wednesday and Friday. Black taught like a yoga core every Friday, and then power yoga. Well, they were both power yoga, but he would switch it up. And I mean, this shit is no joke, man. You got people that can bench 300 pounds, were damn near professional athletes, Division I athletes, built like a brick shit house, solid muscle, can't hold their own body weight. And that's the one thing I learned about yoga, and I took that to fitness. Like, if you can't handle your own body weight, you really have no business touching a weight, right? Well, going to yoga, I learned to handle my own body weight. And I would be, I'd go to that class every day trying to get this sequence down. And he would do the same warm-up every time. It's a form of what's called a sun salutation. It's something like a yoga warm-up, right? But you're essentially saluting the sun. And what I'm doing is I'm loading up my tool belt is what I'm doing. And not only am I going to Black's power yoga class, but I'm also going to all these other classes, interval class. They had a jump rope class, cardio class, plyometric class, and these are all taught by people who were former athletes. You know what I mean? Like Division I athletes, people that are no joke. And now they're in there with nothing but time on their hands, chiseled as a motherfucker, and they're filling your cup, teaching you the things that got them where they're at. So, there's a lot to be gained in here. If you remember in the last episode, I talked about money. And I don't mean money in the form of currency. I mean money in the form of like a metaphor, in that they take everything away from you. And so when you build upon yourself, when you stay focused, when you figure out ways to overcome the adversity and do something positive with yourself, that's money. Reading, exercise, spirituality, whatever the case may be, right? So Black taught me more of a power style yoga, where JC was teaching me something called Iyengar yoga, where you're holding a pose for like a minute long, and it was great, but it wasn't really my speed. I needed more. I'm kind of an intense person. I needed to be able to, kind of blast through some shit. And then I met this dude, Sun. Shout out Sun. So Sun was from Jamaica. Sun was doing his thing in the streets of New York, somewhere in the city. I don't know exactly where. I want to say the Bronx or Brooklyn, somewhere in New York. Sun was doing his thing, and he got caught on a big case. Sun was driving Maseratis in the 80s, and he ended up catching a 30-year bid for crack. 30-year bid. And I met Sun when he was like 20 years down. And Sun, he was an older dude. He was probably 50 back then. And he had a low cut. He still had all his hair, barely any gray. He had a low cut, and then he had one dread, just one dread in the back. And he had the two pretty boy goals right here. And Sun was funny as hell. But Sun was my introduction to spiritual yoga. So Sun had yoga in the chapel. And he had to finesse in order to get that, because yoga is not a religion, but he got on through meditation and the significance of meditation, and he actually had to team up with the Buddhists, because that is considered a religion, and meditation is a big part of that. But he had to kind of use Buddhism as an in to be able to get yoga in as a spirituality, right? And that took paperwork, that took like law library shit in order to secure this spot. So it was every Thursday night we would hit that rec move, and we would be in the chapel. We'd have this little room, and we had these carpets we'd roll out. So we didn't use yoga mats. We'd just roll out these big ass carpets. And in the chapel, you get access to special things. So we had incense, we had candles, and he would teach us like Medu Neter. I don't know if you're familiar with Medu Neter, but it's like Egyptian philosophy. This man taught me so much. And the first yoga book that I read was actually called Egyptian Yoga. And it kind of demystifies a lot of this, what's the word I'm looking for? Culture vulture kind of shit. Like yoga, this is debatable. And I'm sure that some of these yogi motherfuckers are going to say, oh, that's not true. But as far as I know, yoga started in Kemet. And Kemet was Egypt. It wasn't Egypt, it was Kemet. It was all of Asia, Africa. It was this huge, kingdom, so to speak. So, and if your proof is, if you look at the pyramids and you look at the hieroglyphics, you can actually see yoga poses on the wall. Warrior One, tree pose, all these yoga poses that predate what we know as like the Indian yoga, and even predate Sanskrit. So the first yoga book I read was Egyptian Yoga by Muada Ashby. Muada Ashby was this Caribbean dude, and he started a whole, I want to say it was called SEMA or something like that. And this is like a foundation where they'll send you yoga material. You know what I mean? Like they help out people that are locked up. And so this put me on this spiritual path. I was learning pranayama, which is breathing work. And I was learning just more spiritual aspects of yoga, which the dude JC wasn't really hip to, because he was super Christian and he felt like that was like the witchcraft, the demonry, right? He wasn't all in. He was all in with the poses, but he was very much attached to the church and Christianity, and those, that whole thought process, I should say, looked at yoga spirituality as like demon shit, right? So I had to go somewhere else to get the spiritual component. So now I got like 3 components of yoga. I got like the Iyengar, slow hold, kind of like yoga purist from JC. I got the power, like yoga ninja shit from Black. And then I got the spirituality from Sun. And Sun eventually ended up transferring to a spot, and everything's kind of like Godfathered in there. So now there's an opportunity to take this over. And he asked me, he's like, yo, you want to take it over? I'm like, shit, yeah. So now I got access to a room every Thursday night. I really can do whatever I want in there. But he had a whole following. And there's this one dude, man, I can't think of his name, but he was a real good dude. And he caught I don't know how many years he was military. So he came in through the military, and what he was doing is he was selling guns. Like he would get people pieces of guns that he was stealing from the military and selling them. And clearly that's a federal offense. And he got, like, I don't know how much time, but this is a real sad story. So this dude, man, one of the most eloquent, well-spoken, just kind-hearted people you ever met. But if you ever knew this story, you wouldn't even believe it. He was about to go home, and he was watching TV. And people in prison, they called the TV the one-eyed monster, because TV fucks with people's brains in there. You know, they take everything away from you. You don't have any control. Your old lady might be cheating on you out there. Your kids aren't obeying you. They might not even be talking to you. People ducking your calls. People spend your money. Got a lot going on in this headspace. So now you're trying to control shit around you. You're trying to control toilet paper. You're trying to control chemicals. You're trying to control the fucking TV. So, you know, it's supposed to be on a schedule, but there's always going to be somebody that's like, oh, I want to watch this. I want to watch that. And if you want to get fucked up, just walk up there and change that TV while everybody's watching it. You know what I mean? Like, let you not be somebody and not know somebody or know something about what's going on, and you just walk in there and change that TV, because that's a good way for somebody to fuck you up. And that's just what this man happened to do. He was about to go home on I want to say he had like a 12-year sentence for selling guns to the military, and somebody changed the TV on him. This man picked the dude up and threw him off a top tier and fucked him up. The man was like literally fucked up, like permanently disabled, because he fucked him up. And then he ended up catching all this time, sent him to a USP, and that was like a day before he went home. And you know, the rumor was, you see this all the time in movies. Like if you see Shawshank Redemption and just any movie where somebody just spent their whole life in prison or a decade in prison, this becomes your life. You're clothed, you're fed, this is your everyday, right? So now it's like, okay, what am I going home to? My old lady left me. I look like a fool in front of everybody. My kids don't respect me. Like, what the fuck I want to go out to that for? You know? So fuck it. I'm going to toss this motherfucker off this top tier. This is my home now. Sadly, that's what happens. You get institutionalized, and it's a real thing. So on a lighter note, that was one of the guys that would come and do meditation with me. We would do headstands, shoulder stands, breathing work, and we do some light meditation. And that was one of Sun people that stayed in the chapel with me after Sun went to another compound. There was another dude in the chapel named Ayu. God bless the dead. Ayu died in prison. I watched them take him out on a stretcher. They wouldn't pronounce him dead till he was out. They didn't even try to resuscitate him. They did not even fucking try. Over 100 witnesses. But shit, this is the feds. This is the government. Who you gonna call? You know what I mean? So Ayu had a room in the chapel, and he had it under Yoruba, right? But Yoruba was kind of split up into two different sects in prison. Two different groups. You had Santeria Yoruba, which was the Babalaos, you know, mainly Cubans, people from the islands, and then you had African Yoruba, and that's what Ayu had. But Ayu would go in there and he would teach mainly African principles, and basically black empowerment, and you know, he would use that as a platform more or less to uplift black people. And I used to be in there in the chapel, and the motherfuckers would be looking at me like, motherfucker, what you doing in here? Look, man, I'm soaking up game. You're dropping jewels, I'm here for it. And I actually started to work out with Ayu. He used to do capoeira, but you can't do martial arts in there. So he would run me through these crazy ass drills. He was in real good shape. Now, Ayu had much respect from all the groups, whether you were a gangbanger, whether you were spiritual, whether you were Muslim, it didn't matter. All the shot callers, everybody respected Ayu. And I learned a little bit about Ayu. Ayu went to NYU, New York University. Ayu's father was Malachi York. Malachi York serving a life sentence right now for a number of different things. But was essentially a political prisoner who they tried to label a child molester, sex offender. I don't know the details. I'm not co-signing on anything. but he's a major character. He published all these books about Christianity and how Christianity was used to control the African American population in America. That's who this dude's father was. So clearly this dude knows something. But IU ended up having these headaches. It's crazy. I used to talk to me every single day. He used to sit in the Florida table, even though I don't know where IU was from. I want to say he was from New York, but he used to sit at the Florida table with the island dudes. And dude used to show me nothing but love and respect. And I remember one day I see IU and I go to holler at him and he looked at me crazy as hell and his face was all balled up. I was like, oh damn, what the fuck I do to you? You know what I mean? So I'm not dwelling on it. I kept it pushing. And then later on, someone was like, yo, you hear what happened to IU? I'm like, no, what's up? They're like, man, IU fucked up. And then the next time I saw him, he was in a wheelchair, like literally hands like this. If you're listening, not watching, like hands like he had a stroke or like he couldn't move and his head was cocked sideways and it looked like he was asleep. He couldn't open his eyes and he had like that permanent look of pain on his face. Well, I told you in previous episodes that they won't fucking do shit for you unless you're dying. And you had an aneurysm in his brain. He dropped dead on the compound. The aneurysm ruptured, he died. I watched them take that man out on a stretcher. And this is a really kind of sad but thought-provoking connection because IU died from an aneurysm in his brain. They wouldn't give him medical treatment. They just kept giving him Motrin, giving him ibuprofen. He had all these people in the law library trying to push for him. And they violated, so his roots were actually Islam. So there's a certain way they have to go about the funeral process with the body and everything, and the BOP failed them. They weren't able to do what they needed to do to honor his body, right? So it's just wrong on every level you could think of. But I had another homie that was actually a Babalawo, and we called him Papi Suarez. Right? Rene Suarez was his name. He was actually a Marialista. He was in prison in Cuba. He's an old head. This man was like 70 years old or in his 70s. And this is way back when, like 10 years ago in Williamsburg. And this is when Castro opened up all the prisons and go to America, right? And so he made it to America and then became like a big dope boy and he was a Babalawo. And this man was like 70-something years old, and every single tooth on his mouth was gold. And I told y'all in previous episodes I never played games, right? That was one of my big rules, but I ain't gonna lie, I broke the rules with Papi Suarez. He was cool as fuck. We would play spades, we played casino, because we were in laundry together. That's the only time I played cards in there, because we'd be in laundry bidding off each other, right? But never on the open compound, never in the yard, just with like my coworkers, so to speak. And Papi Suarez was the sewer. And that was like the ultimate hustle. He would make the most incredible clothes for people. Custom shorts, custom this, custom that. And he's in there balling off the sewing machine. Right? But I went to a camp, which I'll tell you about later on. But before I did, I guess Papi Suarez was having these issues. He was like coughing up blood and shit. But man, like not too long after I went to the camp, it was the lady from laundry who knew us. And she was actually like, it's cops and robbers in there. So the cops are on one side, the robbers on the other. But, some of the cops are cool. I mean, you got to keep it surface level. But you build relationships with them. You see them every day. They're your boss. Some of them would even bring us like street food. You know what I mean? And like really show love. They could get fired and even like a criminal charge for that. And they would show us love like that. So there's one of the ladies that did that. When I was over at the camp, she was like, Mayello. She used to call me Mayello. Mayello. She's like, you hear about Papi Suarez? Even the CO called him Papi Suarez. I'm like, no, what happened? She's like, he didn't make it. He died. And that shit fucked me up. The aneurysm ruptured. Papi Suarez died. Right? And that was at Williamsburg. And to kind of rewind, this is Live Struggle. Where did Live Struggle come from? Live Struggle came from my big homie Tim, Big Baby, who died in Miami FDC from a fucking aneurysm in his leg. It wasn't getting the medical attention he needed, and he was in Williamsburg. He knew Papi Suarez. He knew IU. He knew every person I'm telling you about in Williamsburg. So just a sad but interesting connection, and you know, I'm hoping at some point that this podcast can possibly spark change, right? So if you're watching this and you want to get active on some activism shit and fight for convicts' rights to prevent this type of thing from happening and protect people who have nobody to advocate for them, man, drop a comment, DM me, reach out. I'm not hard to find, man. We got to make some changes within this system, y'all. So I told you about the economy. I told you about the jobs. I was telling you about spirituality. And, man, I think we done went through the whole Williamsburg medium without going into every little story. But there is one story I'm going to share. And then I'm going to take you to the camp in the next episode. So I was in a medium high, first of all. And in a medium high, you have certain custody levels. Now, when I got locked up, I was 22 years old, all right, when I got sentenced. 23 when I got sentenced. So I had my 23rd, 24th birthday. So I was, but when you, so the way that you're designated and where they classify your security level in prison is based off of a point system. And the point system runs from a number of things. It runs off of how much time you have. If you have more than 10 years, then you get extra custody points, meaning you're more of a custody risk. If you're under 25, you get crazy custody points because they think you're wild. This is like, you know, comparable to like what they call the JIT camps in state, YO camps, your youthful offender camps, because the younger you are, the more wild you are, right? So that adds to your custody level. And then, of course, if you have violence in your case, that'll add to your custody level. So I'm in a medium high. I'm a non-violent offender, but I did have guns in my case. So that having guns in your case, you have a special enhancement, you get more time, and then that raises your custody level. So my points were supposed to score out to like a camp, minimum security, but because of my age, the amount of time I had, and the gun enhancement, they had my points so fucking jacked up that they had to put something called a management variable on me. And the way that a management variable works, it's like they put paperwork on you to hold you in a higher custody than you should be in, right? So I'm saying that to say how eventually I ended up going to the camp, because once you get that management variable removed, if your points are so low, now they have to lock you up in solitary, because remember, you're government property. And if anything happens to you, that you're a fucking investment. So they can't let you at this real low custody level get fucked up, because now they're liable, right? Because they got you way past your custody, which they did for myself and a lot of other people. I was never supposed to be in a medium high, right? But I'm saying that to say, okay, so I was telling you that the whole compound is like a city, right? And there's a barbershop in there. Now, my first couple years, my hair was long as hell. I looked like the Taliban. I had this big ass beard. I basically had this big thick fro, and all my homeboys would ride me because, you know, year after year, even month after month, my shit started to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And all the bros are like, yo, when you gonna let that shit go, man? When you gonna let that shit go? And like me, I'm thinking, man, what the fuck do I care what I look like? I'm in prison. Like, I'm not trying to impress these COs. I'm not trying to, I'm damn sure not trying to impress these dudes. So, like, what the fuck do I care? Well, at some point, I ended up getting a visit, and I wanted to look kind of fly for the visit. Plus, when you go to visits, you got, you know, there's old heads in there, and they got daughters older than you, and they're in there bad as a motherfucker. So it's like, okay, I'm going to visit. Let me go ahead and get right. Let me go ahead and crease my pants. You know, hopefully they didn't steal the iron and make a stinger out of it. Let me go ahead and crease these pants right quick, and you know what I mean, get my fresh little cut. So there was this dude in the barbershop named Righteous. And he was a Latin King. That was another gang there. And no disrespect to Latin Kings at all. I'm just stating facts. He was a Latin King, and he was seemingly a cool motherfucker, right? And but to tell this story, I kind of got to rewind a little bit into a couple more stories. So I told you that you got to be real careful talking to homosexuals, and I don't mean to seem homophobic. I don't mean to offend anybody. This is just the reality of survival in prison, right? But I want to rewind to laundry for a minute. All right, so bear with me. I'm gonna bring this all together. So, one of the interesting things about laundry and why everybody wants to know somebody in laundry, whenever a bus comes, and I told you I went there in a van with 6 people, right, from Ocilla, Georgia. But a lot of times you got buses coming from all over the place, and the buses got like 40 people in them, convicts. So now every time the bus hits, everybody wants to know, especially the people been down a long time. Like, or you might know somebody's getting designated to that spot. So they're like, yo, my homeboy's gonna be here. And every time the bus comes, everybody's like, yo, did such and such come? Hey, did you see any? And then they'll tell you their 3 numbers. Because I told you the last 3 numbers on your docket that's actually plastered on your shirt tells you where you're from. So, you know, and everybody's seeking homeboys, seeking camaraderie, seeking familiarity. So every time a bus would come, man, I get bum rush when I get back to the unit. Yo, man, anybody from Carolina over there? Anybody from Tampa over there? Anybody from, DC over there? You know, and they want to know. It's like, yeah, man, there's a couple DCs over there, a couple whatever. But so I will never forget this shit right here. Oh my God. So they brought a punk. Forgive my vernacular. I'm not trying to offend anybody. This is just prison vernacular. This is what you call it. They brought a punk, which I guess you would call a trans person. Okay? This motherfucker had boobs, and they were natural boobs. And so you got to realize that some of these guys in laundry been locked up 20 years, 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, there was only a couple dudes in there that hadn't been in more than a couple years, and we were kind of like fresh in, right? But these dudes been locked up a long time. And I remember they brought this bus in, and it was so confusing because it looked like a woman. And we're all men, and then we're seeing the boobs. So like even the dudes that have no, bisexual thoughts at all of a sudden are like, hang on, what's going on? There's titties. The ass looks kind of fat. Like, what the fuck is going on? Everybody's confused. They're like, yo, and then they're trying to get in close to see what's going on. And then the one dude, Mikey, this little Filipino dude, hilarious, definitely questionable in the sexual whatever. But that's his business. So Mikey was like, yo, Mikey, go investigate, man. What's up with this? Like, did they make a mistake? Is that motherfucker? Is that a man? Is that a what? So like now it's all eyes on this motherfucker, and this word spread like fire about this motherfucker. And I'm not gonna lie, when that motherfucker gets up close, it's a fucking dude. That motherfucker got hands bigger and stronger than mine, very strong facial features, and I forget the real name of the person, but when they when we're doing the intake, because we got to ask them what clothes they are, we got to dress them out, get their drawers, get their their uniforms and all that. You got to come to us to laundry to get all this. So we go to call the dude or the person, the chick, the person. This is confusing me. So we called the person by their name, and then he was like, "Oh, call me Happy." Call me Happy, right? And then, of course, like, we're laughing, but like, no, you're not trying to be disrespectful or mean, but like, you're kind of laughing a little bit. Okay, Happy. Okay. So as soon as they put Happy in the unit, they put Happy in the DC unit. And again, I'm not saying everybody from DC is gay, but this particular yard, there was some weird shit going on with DC, and I told you about that from what I learned in the band room. Well, as soon as they put this motherfucker in that unit, lockdown, these motherfuckers were about to go to war behind the homosexual, right? And what it was the DC dudes they want some of those titties in that fat booty, right? Like, I'm just saying what it is, man. Don't judge me. If you live where I live, you'd be saying all the same shit I'm saying right now. You would understand at least. So don't judge what you're hearing right now. This is real shit. So the DC dudes are trying to get at Happy. I'll just call it Happy. I'm not trying to use no disrespectful terms. I'm trying to keep it PC, politically correct. So, but the paisas protect them, right? Especially if they're Mexican. And so you know, as soon as a Mexican comes on the yard, right away, Paisa, you're either Paisa or Sereno, right? But Sereno is a little bit, they're a little bit more filtered. They have a little bit, I don't know the details, and I'm not going to sit there and assume, because that's not my business. I stay out of people's business. I stay in my lane. But I'll just say the Paisas were much more accepting of newcomers, right? And they had probably the biggest yard presence in Williamsburg, South Carolina. Probably in Yazoo City too when I was in the low. But this particular yard, so the Paisas and the Paisas going to protect Happy, and the DC dudes are bumping heads with the Pisces. They're like literally about to go to war in this motherfucker. So what they had to do, they had to lock us all down until they sorted it out, and they had to move Happy to the Paisa unit. There was a unit that was like a whole Paisa unit pretty much, right? And so that's where Happy went, and then things resumed back to normal, right? But when they bring one of these motherfuckers on the yard, you see where people's heads are really at and who they really are. Like, they might talk all this shit about homosexuals, the most homophobic, most hateful shit in the world, talking about like horrible things, saying like, I've even heard out of one person's mouth say like, oh, faggots should die. And listen, I'm not saying that. That's fucking awful. But these are the things that are coming out of some of these people's mouth. But as soon as they put the homosexual on the yard with the boobs and the butt, that same hateful ass motherfucker is stalking this bitch. Stalking, following them on the rec yard, like trying to find out where they're sitting in the chow hall, trying to stand next to them in the commissary line. Like, people are weird, and you never really know somebody. You never know what's going on up here. Okay, so back to laundry. Happy ended up getting a job in laundry. Okay, Happy ended up getting a job in laundry, and I forget where I was at that. I was probably still working laundry. I don't remember. But because there was a bunch of us, there was probably like 20, 30 of us that worked in laundry. It was a big ass laundry, 1,800 compound, or 1,800 people on the compound. But right next door to the laundry was the commissary, the barbershop, and safety. They call it safety. And that's like where you get your chemicals. You can actually get OSHA certified. I got OSHA certified in there. And it lasts a lifetime. It costs like $500 in the streets, but I got it in there through safety. But that's a whole nother thing. So if you need an OSHA guy, I'm your guy. I'm bullshitting, but I'm not, because I really do got that. So Righteous, who I was telling you about a moment ago, there was a Latin King dude. He worked in the barbershop, and he was one of the better barbers. And I'm not just gonna let anybody cut my hair. Like, I had been in there years before I decided, okay, I'm gonna let Righteous cut my hair. So I kept trying to get, Happy only worked in laundry for like a couple days. And then Happy got a job in the barbershop, right? And that's where Happy wanted to be the whole time, because Happy said, I'm a stylist. I'll never forget that. So when this lady Bradshaw got in trouble, she was actually fucking inmates and shit, you know? And it's so fucked up when a COO fucks an inmate, they don't get caught. Motherfuckers tell, and it usually be the motherfucker that actually got the pussy. Like, why would you do that? She gave you the pussy, and then you go and fucking tell on her. And that was one of the ladies that was bringing us street food and shit. Like, come on, man. Why you gotta fuck up a good thing? You know what I mean? For everybody. I'll tell you why. Time cuts and little dumbass shit. You know, you sell your whole soul, why don't you? So, but they do, as we all know. So, Happy ended up, or Ms. Bradshaw said, so what do you want to do? You want to be in laundry? What do you want to do? She said, no, I want to work in the barbershop. I want to be a stylist. So I'm a stylist, right? And somehow within a couple weeks, Happy pulled strings. Happy's in the barbershop. Happy wasn't styling. Happy was the orderly, like cleaning up and shit. But this is where it gets hilarious. So I'm trying to get my hair cut like every fucking day. I go over there, try to catch a rec move. I'm like, yo, Righteous, can you cut my hair today? Nah, bro. Nah, I got a line. Nah, bro, I'm about to clean up. Nah, bro. And he kept telling me, I'm like, listen, man, Righteous. And he was like having this little kind of fucked up attitude. And finally I'm like, Righteous, man, tell me when to come. When can I come to the barbershop? Right? I'm trying to get a haircut. So I finally went the time he said. I got my stamps, because, you know, you pay for the haircut in stamps. And I get in the barbershop, and now I caught the move. I'm sitting down. He's cleaning up. He's got somebody in the chair, and then he keeps giving me this dirty ass look. And he's like, "Hey man, we about to wrap things up." And I'm like, and it's just him and Happy, right? So I'm like, "Yo, you told me to come. You ain't got time to cut me?" And he's like, and he started huffing and puffing. He's like, I guess. I looked at this motherfucker. I said, "No, I'm cool." As soon as the move opened, I shot out. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna keep dragging me and playing with me. So now, I told you they do open compound every time there's breakfast. Breakfast is at 6 a.m. sharp. Lunch is at 12 p.m. sharp. And then dinner's at around like 5:30 or something like that, right? And they do the open movements. Well, whenever there's fog in prison, you're locked down. And they have to do a fog count. And that's like a whole nother thing. They count certain times of the day. Some counts you can just be wherever and they can count you. But you have at least, it's been a while, but you had at least 3 stand-up counts where you have to stand up in bed, make sure that you're not fucking dead. Somebody didn't tuck you in your bed. Because that happens. Motherfucker will be dead. They'll tuck you in and shit and count you so that, they don't know you're dead or whatever. But so that's why you have to do a stand-up count. Or, you could escape, of course. So, but whenever there's fog, they do a fog count. If you went to work and fog rolls in, they call everybody back from work, call everybody back from the rec yard, call everybody back from the kitchen, fog count, right? You got to go back in your cell, you got to stand up, they come around, they count you, right? Everybody in the compound. Now, and I remember when I told you when you're in the chow hall, that's when you get to see people from other units. So my bro, damn, what's bro's name, man? Fuck, I can't think of his name. But my bro, I'll just call him Bradenton. He was from Chicago. I'll call him Chi-Town. But he moved down to Northport, and I'll tell you another crazy story about that. Another little side story, which I'm going to tie in. So my bro, I'll call him Chi-Town. He was in the unit across from me in Citrus. And when I was in Citrus, remember I told you everybody was telling, and they were like bragging about them telling, and there was this dude from Bradenton, his name was Mark. He called himself Fast Rapper. He was a rapper at, I guess he had a little bit of money in the street, but he was a big ass snitch. Everybody knew it, and he had no shame. He was actually bragging in Citrus, which was a holdover. This is before prison. I rewinded a little bit about y'all, so bear with me. Fast Rapper was bragging about how he got busted with coke or whatever he got busted with, crack, whatever it was, and then the feds, and remember I told you the feds are always trying to get you to get crack and guns, because that's where they get the most convictions, they can give you the most time, they want you to get crack and guns, right? So in that whole meritorious manumission shit, like, oh, a body for a body, a life for a life, shit, you can get out. So he's telling us this crazy ass story about how he goes to buy a gun from this dude in Bradenton, and how he hands the dude's got the gun, and then as soon as he gets there, he had the wire. He was like, y'all come, or whatever rats do when they want to call the fucking police. So when the dude realized that it was a setup, he tries to burn off with the dude in the car, the rat, and the dude's like, he's telling this story. I'm hearing it, his side of the story, right? He's not talking to me. I'm gonna talk to that motherfucker. He was talking to other people in the compound, just in the open, you hear everything. This was in not the compound, in the pod, in the unit in Citrus County. Well, fast forward now, right? I'm back in Williamsburg, and my bro Chi-Town from Bradenton, he tells us the story about how he gets set up by this dude named Fast Rapper. It's like, damn, man, that dude was telling me about this shit, and I hear the whole other side, how, he thought dude was the homie, and he went to go sell him a chopper, like a, I don't know, SK or something, and it was a setup, and they fucking got his ass. I think he got like 7 years or some shit for that shit. But anyway, that was my bro. That was my bro in there. And man, I can't think of bro's name. It don't even matter. We're going to call him Chi-Town. And Chi-Town was like the most player motherfucker in the world. He was kind of short. He had long dreads. He had a beard. And he used to do like these fly designs in his beard. And when he talked, he had like that Chicago kind of, swag to him. He even had like when he talked, it was almost like he was singing, like poetic. Like my bro, he was like poetry in motion, right? So it was fog count, and we were locked down. And when you're locked down, they bring you out unit by unit, right? And you might catch the tail end of another unit. So I was in like 3A or something. I don't even remember. And then he was in like 3B or something. He was in another unit. And so he was still in the chow hall when I sat down, and he was like, yo, you ain't hear about Righteous? And I was like, no. What happened? He's like, man, they caught Righteous and the punk fucking in the barbershop. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, man. He said, but the crazy shit is, they say the punk was fucking him. So it's like, you got this gangster ass dude, tattoos all over him, and then you got this dude that really looks a lot like a woman from a distance, not so much up close, just be honest. But it was the other way around. Like the tough guy dude was getting, so I'm told from CNN. The CNN is the Compound News Network. You know what I mean? The Compound News Network, you never know what you're going to hear, but there's news every day. You know what I mean? Breaking news every day. So I'm going to wrap this podcast up because around that time is when I finally went to see my case manager, right? And you only get to see your case manager like once a year. And my case manager was a fucking asshole. I actually got into it with him the first couple times I was there because, let me tell you some real shit. So keep your fucking receipts anytime you pay the government something. Because when you first get sentenced, you have to pay $100 court fee. Everybody has to pay. It's probably a lot more now, but back then it was $100. And do you know that every single institution I went to, and I've been to 11, okay, I've been to 11 institutions, 4 actual prisons, but 11 institutions, like I'm considering, counties, holdovers, whatever, those are all institutions. And at least 5 of them, they tried to get me to pay that $100 fee. Right, and that's how I ended up getting into it with my case manager, because he's like, what they do is they try to dock out your commissary. $100 is a lot of money when you're making 13 cents an hour and you don't got loads of money in the streets. So I finally see my case manager, and they run what are called my points. Now by this time I had already been in there a couple years. I think I got to that prison when I was 23, so I had 2 birthdays in there. So as soon as I turned 25. I ended up going to get my points readjusted, and my points dropped so low, right? And when your points drop beyond the custody level, they put you in the hole, right? So I'm going to stop this episode here, and there's something real important I got to tell you on the next one that I didn't touch on this one. I'm going to tell you about my cellies, because that's great content. I got to tell you about my cellies, and not my homeboy, my other cellies. I told you about Derm. So next episode, I'll tell you a little bit about my cellies, and then I'm going to tell you about the special housing unit where they sat me for like maybe 3 months before I went to a camp, minimum security, which is a crazy transition, y'all. So if you're watching, stay tuned. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Share with your people, drop comments, start a conversation, ask questions, man. If there's something you want to hear more about, drop it in the comment section. I appreciate y'all checking in, man. It's MP, Live Struggle Legacy. We building pyramids, y'all.
Live struggle legacy. It's a whole movement.